Welcome to the Tank Magazine podcast. In this week's episode, Caroline Issa is joined by Jen Rubio, co-founder of Away, a direct-to-consumer luggage brand which has radically disrupted the market since its launch in 2016. They talk about evolving travel trends, keeping good habits while in transit, and building a loyal brand following without rigging the algorithm.
So, welcome, Jen Rubio,
Thank
co-founder
you.
of Away, the incredible disruptor in the luggage industry, and so much more. But we'll come to that soon. Very happy to have you in London.
I'm very happy to be here.
Well, thank you for joining us in the Tank studio. Can we start with what your travel month looks like? So, what's your itinerary this month?
I actually don't know if I can go back that far, but in the last 6 days,
Okay.
I went from New York to Phoenix to San Francisco to Paris, and now I'm in London.
That's in 6 days.
In 6 days.
So, you are the consummate traveler.
Yeah, and I don't know, I'm feeling a little different about it than I used to. I think it used to be such a badge of honor and, collecting all of the miles and counting how many flights you've been, but I've become hyper conscious of it lately.
Is that in the era of Greta Thunberg, or is that...
I think it's partly that, I'm not taking a carbon fiber ship across the world. But I think it's that, and also just from a self-wellness standpoint, I've been thinking a lot about what does that do to your body? What does it do to your mind to be gone that much? So I've actually been trying to, the reason my schedule is like that is because I've been trying to extend my time at home, and then when I'm traveling, just do it all at once.
Pack it all in.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you still love about the experience of travel? And
I love so much of it. I think it's, I think I would compare it to the awareness around single-use plastic, for example. It doesn't mean that people stop drinking beverages. It just means they're more conscious of taking that plastic straw or drinking out of that plastic water bottle. And I think it's the same. I'm not going to stop traveling. And not just because I love it, but because I need to do it.
Absolutely.
But just being more conscious of how I do it and how I can be more aware when I'm doing that. But honestly, it is the best thing, and there's just so much. I believe so much in in-person interactions, and you can't really feel like you're seeing or experiencing anything or being part of a community if you're not traveling and being in it. Yeah. As much as there's so much available on Instagram and YouTube and every so much is accessible on the internet, but it's just not the same. No. And I'm always looking for perspective. So I think that's really important to keep finding that in my travels.
The one thing I've learned about what you guys are doing at Away is that you have such incredible... You started with luggage, but you have big ambitions. I think the first ever interview I did with you, you talked to me about an airline. And who knows one day whether that Aware airline will come. But what about the travel experience do you still loathe? That you still sort of go, I'm going to get my hands on this soon?
Well, I wouldn't say soon, but there still is so much to fix. Well, it's funny because, we started the company with such a huge vision around everything we could fix around travel. And then as we've gotten bigger, we've actually gotten more practical because we're we'll start with luggage, we'll expand to all these other things. And then you realize how much work there is to do in each thing. So now here we are almost 5 years after my suitcase first broke and we came up with the idea, and almost 4 years after we launched. And, we're still very much focused on growing our share of the luggage market. But I think, in the near term, we're shifting our thinking from, gaining share of the luggage industry and thinking more about what we call share of suitcase. So if you are packing an Away suitcase, how can we make the perfect version of everything you need for travel so that the clothes that you wear on your journey, maybe the toiletries and the skincare that you're bringing are perfectly formulated for travel? And how can we provide that? But I think in terms of the travel experience, the time that you spend at the airport, just the waiting time, even, the lounges now have become overrun. There's no sanctuary.
Absolutely.
And if you think about the way people travel, people use travel as an excuse to kind of suspend their good habits. So they're I'm not going to think about what I eat, or I'm not going to work out. And I used to do that. And I used to say, you know what, I'm just not going to work out when I travel because I'm traveling. And then someone was like, you're traveling like 70% of the time. So
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, I'm just never working out.
You're just literally suspending essentially like 3/4 of your lifetime.
Exactly. But we think about, the limitations, whether, you might be staying in an Airbnb and there's not a gym. And so we think a lot about like, what are the little ways we can improve those experiences? And to me, I think the best traveler is someone who can feel at home in any environment. So that's my superpower. Like I can land in a place and I know how to like stick to the important habits that like make me feel good, but then also be very open to the new and stranger experiences out there.
I love that. Do you find that traveling across Europe or Asia, I mean, there's so much difference, but is that commonality, that ability of like having your own personal habits that you institute, whether you're in Shanghai versus Phoenix?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, how can you bring your full self to the place that you're traveling? And then I think when you're able to do that, you can really immerse yourself in that culture. So it's not about being like a stereotypical American who's kind of like not really experiencing things the way you should be, but like how do you bring like your personality and your routines to a place so that you're comfortable enough? Because I think when you feel that sense of comfort, that's when you'll actually be more open to the things around you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree with that. What do you think though is, I mean, you guys launched as a direct-to-customer first brand, and mainly I think in the UK and the US and Europe, I guess. US and Europe as your first main markets. Have you expanded to Asia? Do you find that there are different demands from different regions in terms of like what they want from their travel experience and their luggage and the bigger sort of things that are associated with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think even when you just think about, our core product, which is the suitcase, we definitely see a difference in what people are buying, even, between New York and London. We've found here that more people are traveling, but for shorter periods of time. So actually the smaller bags are more popular here. We recently just launched like soft-sided luggage, this like expandable luggage that we have. And that was in response to feedback we've gotten over the years. And we actually found that a little more than half of UK travelers will only travel with a soft bag. So
why is that? Do you have
I don't know.
idea?
We found that really interesting. We dug into it a little more, and we realized as much as we put a lot of thought into designing what we thought to be the perfect suitcase, there was still that contingency that just won't convert. So we created the best bag possible for them, and it actually has some features like being able to expand a couple of inches.
Which I love, because I always think you're always buying souvenirs. Like, why aren't you're stuffing it even more? So that was...
Exactly. And I'm one of those people that whatever bag I bring, I'll fill it, no matter how long I'm going for.
I'm with you, yes.
I pack the same amount for like a 2-day trip as I do for a 2-week trip. So it's a super helpful thing. But in terms of patterns, I think what we've seen is obviously in Europe there is more of a propensity towards train travel and shorter trips. We've actually seen a lot of Americans take more road trips, and there's just American travelers just I think something like 80% of American travelers just focus on domestic travel. Obviously we have a lot more ground to cover there. But in terms of new markets like Asia, obviously China is a huge opportunity. There's like a growing middle class there that is traveling for the first time, and that is just growing just exponentially year over year. And that's something where we think about how do we maintain our values as a brand and what we stand for, and tell like the story of Away and the Away traveler, but do that in a way that's like culturally relevant to the new markets that we're entering.
Yeah. I mean, your tagline when I Google Away is the perfect luggage for the modern traveler. And I just wanted to understand, like, how would you actually define the modern traveler?
I think the modern traveler definitely, I mean, we hear this all the time, but like values experiences over things.
Right.
But then when it comes to the things that they bring with them, we find that everything has been like carefully sourced and selected, or even the places that they go. So, when we think about the modern traveler, it's not someone who just shows up in a place, maybe like reads a guidebook and does that, or just stays in a business hotel. They're looking for an experience that's tailored to them, which means actually, if you think about the modern traveler's experience, there's like infinite versions of what that could be. But, our customers particularly are looking for sources of information that they trust, whether it's their friends and family or certain publications or certain websites or even just the people they follow on Instagram. And people are putting a lot more effort into curating their own experience, whether it's where they stay or where they eat or what they bring with them. And then we find that all of these travelers just want to associate with brands that actually stand for the same things that they value. So more than ever, the importance of things like, you know, what brand of hotel are you staying at, and what brand of luggage are you bringing with you, not for social status, but to really feel like everything in your experience is like intrinsically tied to who you are.
Yeah, it's so funny. I think, like you, I travel a lot, and it's so wonderful. It's a very tribal thing when you're at the airport and you see somebody with sort of like a peach away luggage. You know, there's a very tribal thing where you kind of nod your head to the guy or the gal who's also got their away luggage, and you sort of do feel like it's a creative community who are explorers. When you actually travel for fun, who do you turn to for itinerary or destination recommendations?
It really just depends on kind of my mindset for that trip. But I think so much of it is what I found is that I don't go to specific like travel resources. So I wouldn't go to like a travel publication or a travel website besides Here Magazine, which obviously,
of course, your own magazine,
which
that
is
you
our
published,
own magazine, and I fully trust their recommendations. But you know, if I think about who do I admire, maybe in fashion or in food or in art, and where are they going? And I think different communities, you know, over set amounts of time gravitate to different places. So that, you know, a couple of years ago there was that time when everybody was going to Iceland, and now
did you go?
Yes, I did.
You got on that train.
Trap. You know,
the Blue Lagoon.
I fell into the Blue Lagoon trap, like Instagramming from there. But yeah, I think, you know, different communities gravitate to different places. So just looking at that, seeing like what places people are tagging. And I think it's really important that, you know, I'm not just going there because that's where people are going. But if I trust somebody's taste in fashion or in music or in food, it kind of like lends itself well to knowing that wherever they travel, that same high bar is being set for the places they're visiting. So I get a lot of inspiration from that.
Going back to Here, the magazine, sort of the physicality of that and the fact that despite starting direct to customer on web, then you have your own stores around the world, including here in London. Tell me about sort of the bricks and mortar, the physical experience versus what you started out as, which was, you know, pre-order and then website only, and where you could have only bought initially the luggage.
Yeah, I think that every single extension of our brand seeks to add to the customer experience. And I think if you think about all of the different ways a single customer could interact with our brand, you know, let's say 10 times, and those 10 touch points will be totally different than the next customer. So it's really important for us that whether it's online or offline or in a pop-up or a flagship store or on social media versus an email, that all of those touch points feel like they're consistently from away, but they're tailored to that platform. So, you know, I think for us, we're always thinking about, you know, what is the story that we're trying to tell? And it's really around travel and experiences and less about things to do or places to go, but, you know, people's like felt experiences when they're traveling. And then how do we make that come across in everything that we do, so that, you know, we would hate for someone to walk into our store and have a totally different experience than someone who maybe isn't near a store and can only experience us online, you know, by following us on Instagram or being on our website. That being said, every channel or platform is just completely unique in what you can offer. So in terms of our brick and mortar experiences, we do a lot of like community events. So we do things like workshops, whether it's like little workouts you can do in your airplane seat or in your hotel room, or in New York, our community is very responsive to, you know, to talks from journalists who have traveled a lot, or even just how to pack workshops. So things like that. I think even within each community, different things resonate with different communities. So in LA, we have a lot of wellness workshops,
Right.
not surprisingly. So people are like, what supplement should I be taking when I travel? How can I work out in my hotel room? And in New York, there's a lot of the art and literary crowd who talk more about like what inspires them when they travel. And in San Francisco, not surprisingly, there's a lot of programming around technology.
Right.
So really finding out what's important to our communities and then hosting events that bring them together in our store. And I think we still have a long way to go on community. I think there's a huge opportunity for like a digital community. We're seeing the value of these connections in our stores and like how do we take that even further. But it's more about really listening to what our customers want. Even our social media has evolved based on that.
Right.
So we used to post a lot of travel stories, and we found that audience has gravitated more towards like Reading Here magazine and their social platforms,
Right.
where the away audience, all they want is they want to know how to pack, they want to know how to use products. And it was very counterintuitive. We were
Right.
like, we don't want to make this too much about products.
Yeah.
But they're like, no, show us how to use it, show us how other people use it. So we've like really fine-tuned the content to that.
That's interesting. I mean, I think that is also potentially sort of the development of social media itself and how we've sort of adjusted to using Instagram. And I am curious, actually, do you think, you say it's almost 5 years ago now that your luggage broke and kind of inspired you with your co-founder to actually think about creating something that would really change the world of luggage. Do you think the way that you launched then and used social media and the sort of incredible platforms through digital that allowed you to connect to community so quickly, given the high cost of acquisition on and algorithms, like, do you think you would be able to do the same kind of launch today?
Yeah, absolutely. Because the way that we launched was really kind of with the understanding that even back in 2016, we knew that it would be expensive to just buy eyeballs. We never wanted to launch a brand that was just fueled by paid marketing, because I think that's you see a lot of brands running into trouble now where they're like, we've grown so much, and they realize that they've grown purely because they're paying for those customers. Yeah. And it was actually so important to us that when we launched, we said, hey, we're going to set a set amount of time to make sure that there's a lot of organic love for our brand and our product before we even spend a single dollar on advertising. So months went by when we focused on PR, we focused on our own social media, we focused on like influencer relationships that weren't paid, but like people within our network that were just talking about the brand and the community. And that way, by the time we actually started spending money on growth marketing, that marketing was much more efficient,
right.
And two, it was done in a scalable way, because it would just, we think about paid marketing as something that just amplifies what already exists about our brand.
Yeah.
It's not the thing that's going to build your brand. And I think, have I seen other people and other companies literally make, their first millions off just paid marketing? Sure. But then you realize as it gets more expensive,
it's like quicksand, isn't it?
Exactly. So it's a very slippery slope, and one that we were very aware of when we started. So I actually think if I were starting over like right now, today, we would actually spend more time without paid marketing and really build that organic following.
That's so interesting. I think that's such an interesting insight, that actually, trying to figure out loyal community first and then amplifying that in the way that it has meant to be versus going straight in there. But I guess going back to community then, I love the idea that you have community who are willing to go to your store and listen to technology, like almost like YouTube tutorials, but live, in a way of how to pack, how best to technologically prepare yourself for a 1-week trip to China. I don't know, whatever it is. How do you think...
That's a good idea. I'm going to take that back to the team.
That is... I will go to that. I will fly to San Francisco for that one. But I guess the question is, it's so interesting to think that a luggage brand is able to get people to a store to hear these kinds of live experiential sharing of experiences and stories. And I guess, what is it that for you is so natural? But, there's a lot of old school competitors in this market. And plus you have inspired many new, young guns as well to enter into the landscape. But what is it that you think about Away that has kind of gotten under the skin of this industry and what has traditionally been done?
It's, I think it's for sure been the fact that we're so focused on our customer and our community and who they are. And I think that comes from us knowing that, when we started, we put a ton of effort and a ton of research into what the bag would look like, what the features would be, how we would design it. But we were also very practical and very realistic with ourselves and in thinking that, we could design this and any other luggage company that, any of the incumbents could copy it overnight or make something very similar given their, massive manufacturing abilities and their ability to create things so quickly. We didn't think that would happen, but I think when you have that in the back of your head, you realize the thing that you can't copy. And we're seeing this now with kind of new competitors. You can copy product, you can copy the website, you can even copy and paste the text directly from our website, which we have seen, but you can't.
Oh God!
I know, it's egregious.
That is a bit. Yes.
Well, the copy
Nasty.
works. So.
Yes, there you go.
But you can't copy the community, so that's why it was so important for us to build that brand loyalty from the beginning. And I think that it comes down to the way we talked about the brand from the very beginning. Even before we had sold a single suitcase, we always talked about ourselves as a travel brand. We still don't have away.com. Our URL is awaytravel.com. Right. But it's really important for it to be awaytravel.com and not away luggage, which is our first URL.
Oh, that's good to know.
Because we were we need to put ourselves out there as a broader travel brand. Because one, we knew we've actually changed the behavior and that people are more excited about luggage than ever. But we knew back then what we were going into is that people weren't excited about luggage. Packing was the worst part of travel. It made people actually dread a trip. And I think because of the way we talked about that, even our pre-order, which you mentioned, it wasn't a real pre-order. We created these beautiful books that were all about the story and the soul of travel. And by the way, they came with a gift card to the luggage, and that's what people were excited about. But yeah, we just always talk so broadly about the vision and what we stand for and the types of travel that we believe in. And what that's done is given us so much room to do things beyond luggage. So, I think we'd been in business for about a year before we opened a pop-up hotel in Paris, which sold out. And during Paris Fashion Week, every influencer and celebrity was there. There were lines out the door. And if you think about any of the incumbent luggage brands, imagine if they had done a hotel, who would stay at that? Even if you think about the hotel landscape now, who's opening hotels? It's not the big incumbent hotel brands. It's fashion brands are opening hotels. So people are really have always thought about Away as a lifestyle brand, even before we had our first product. And I think that is what has gotten under the skin of the luggage industry. But also, too, it's why we're not worried about the copycats. Because, luggage to us is just, a small part of everything that we'll be creating.
The travel industry, then, as a broader... fashion at the moment is having a huge reckoning with kind of going back to that Greta Thunberg idea of sustainability and what we produce and leave behind, an end of cycle, end of product cycle. Is that conversation happening in the travel industry?
So I think
and how is Away kind of tackling this?
Yeah, I think the conversation is happening, like I said, in terms of people being more conscious about how they travel. It's not saying, I'm not going to travel anymore, but how do I do it better and more consciously? But in terms of the product, I think, again, it's that thoughtfulness of what you bring with you. So I think people are much more thoughtful now about, do you have to buy just single-use travel-size products? Even hotels are changing how they present toiletries in the room. So they're moving away from, the tiny little bottles and doing more refillable things. I think people are more conscious about what they pack. In terms of what we've made, even back in, as we were developing the product almost 5 years ago, we thought a lot about the fact that essentially our first product and our main product that we sell now is made out of polycarbonate, which is, plastic, a type of plastic that, is just like very specifically engineered.
Yeah.
And for us, the thing with sustainability is that there's always trade-offs. There's trade-offs for everything. There's any conscious decision that you make. We have the conversation all the time, for example, about being vegan and do we use real leather? And then like you try to look for alternatives, and it turns out the alternatives are horrible for the environment. So what do you prioritize?
And equally bad parts. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like thinking about how do you prioritize that consciousness? And when we were designing our first product, we were like, we need this to be lightweight. We need it to be durable. Like we need to engineer this product to like meet the needs that people expect from their luggage. And that meant, we couldn't use recycled materials, for example, because they just weren't as strong. They weren't as lightweight. They didn't meet those needs. But then when we looked at that trade-off, we realized what we wanted to focus on is creating a product that would stay out of the landfills. So we have a lifetime warranty.
Wow.
We do repairs whenever we can. So if someone calls us and something happens, we repair it. If not, then we'll take it back and then we'll recycle it.
Right.
And we have like a recycling program. So that is our commitment in the sense of like what we create, where we're totally fine with this bag being your bag for life.
Right.
And that's how we talk about it. That's the behavior that we encourage. Like we're not encouraging someone to buy a new bag, every couple of years. And I think as things progress in terms of like material science and all of the things that are available today that maybe weren't available 5 years ago, we think about what does the next phase of our core product look like? Can we use more innovative, more environmentally friendly materials? We actually have a whole team working on that. We just hired a director of sustainability. We have done, like a big audit of like our carbon footprint. So we are thinking about those things, but I think just being real about the fact that there are trade-offs to any solution. I think even going back to Greta Thunberg, she didn't fly to New York for the United Nations event, but then people are talking about, okay, well, what was the carbon footprint of making that boat? And I think
absolutely,
you can pick at everything,
absolutely.
right? So just
learning how to
prioritize.
Carbon neutral is literally by producing nothing, essentially.
Yes,
but
exactly.
by not being able to produce nothing.
Yeah.
I think by choosing, and it's great to understand how you guys approach that. Last question. I love the idea of share of suitcase, thinking about that. What are you most excited for Away for 2020 that you're allowed to talk about?
Well, it's so fun now because over the last few years, we've focused so much on growing this core business. And finally, I'm very excited to kind of branch out into other categories. I think we've learned so much about our customers and how they travel. And we hear very specific things, for example, like everyone has something that they wear when they're on the plane, but none of it is designed for that. And we have people who are like, this is the outfit I wear, but I don't want to be wearing athleisure when I'm on the plane, but I don't have anything else.
I refuse. Yeah. Absolutely. But it's so true.
And so two categories that we're going into right now are apparel and like skincare and wellness.
That's exciting.
It is exciting. And I get a lot of that's exciting. And then I get a lot of those are two of the most crowded industries you could go into. But we think we see a lot of the same things that we saw with luggage, which is that everyone wears clothes when they travel, hopefully. And everyone, packs a bag with toiletries and skincare, or they take supplements. But the things that people use for that are not specifically geared to their needs. They're kind of just cobbling together solutions. And what we've been really good at is kind of taking all of those needs, taking all those insights, and creating products that are perfect for use when you're traveling. So, for me personally, it's getting like right back into the creating something from nothing and really listening to our customers and just trying and testing. But now the exciting thing is when we launch this, we have a much bigger platform to launch on. So so those two things are in the works, and we have small teams at Away working on those categories, and we're super thrilled about that.
I mean, I think the sign of a fantastic brand is when you can easily imagine what in another category, say an Away home, or what would an Away car look like. And I think you guys have done exactly that, where you've built up the brand so that you can, I think, legitimately head into the space of beauty and apparel, and I'm very much looking forward to that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen, for joining us here at Tank, and very excited for what we're going to be seeing next year, and safe travels.
Thanks so much. Bye.
To hear more podcasts from Tank, you can subscribe on all major podcast platforms or follow us on SoundCloud. The theme music for this podcast is taken from Waiting Games by Kate Simcoe and the London Electronic Orchestra.